is the second class in a series about Noetix Webquery and how you can utilize that tool to make financial reports within Emerson Process Management. In the first class, we talked about how to log in, talked about how to navigate within the tool and the folder structure, and we modified an out-of-the-box report provided by Noetix Webquery, ran that report, saved it to our personal folder, and then we extracted it to Excel. In this class, we're going to go into a little bit more detail where we actually learn how to create a report from scratch, and we're going to customize that report. Then we're going to learn, finally, how we can extract that report to Excel and even query from Excel. So if you'll remember, the first steps are just to open Internet Explorer browser and use your username and password to log in just like you would for eBusiness Suite. And you'll want to choose EMR Noetix Global. That's going to take us to the familiar login screen, the same screen you'll see every time you log into Webquery. Now for this one, we're going to use purchase orders as our example. In the first class, we talked about GL balances. So we're going to mix it up a little bit and talk about maybe something that would be interesting for purchase orders and maybe even how it applies to projects. So perhaps like uninvoiced receipts. Let's go ahead and create a report about that. So without going into it in too much detail, I want to show you something that's really neat within Noetix Webquery, and that is the Search Noetix functionality. You'll find it right underneath your username in the upper right-hand corner, and if you click on that, and you have your pop-up blocker disabled, so you can see the new window is going to appear, and it's going to give you an ability to kind of look through Noetix and see what's out there, what's available for me to use, what you can do within this tool. Now, there's so much information in Noetix help files that it warrants its own segment. So I'm not going to get into all the detail, but I just wanted to give you an introduction to this just so that you know that it's out there and you can start to use it, learning how to use Noetix Webquery. So in our case, we're looking for uninvoiced purchase orders, so we can simply, just as if we were using Google, type purchase orders or something along those lines within the search window. And we're going to get all the views that are associated with that within Webquery. So that's out there, and that's going to be coming in another class. I'm not going to spend any time on that right now, but that's a sneak peek into the next class and when we're going to take a deep dive into understanding how to use Noetix Search. For our purposes, though, let's get back to the task at hand, which is we're going to focus on building this report from scratch. We've chosen purchase orders, uninvoiced purchase orders as they relate to projects. So if you'll remember from the last class, the first step that you'll want to do is find that folder. And since we logged in as global, you're going to want to log in as Noetix Global on Betsy Noetix Global. Okay, so this is going to take us into our subject area folders, just like before. And just like before, we're going to go ahead and click on Oracle Financials. We're looking for financial information. We could even search in projects because we're looking for purchase orders as they relate to projects. But our first step is going to click on Oracle Financials. And since we know that purchase orders are part of payables, we can click on that subject area. So you see we're drilling down from general to specific, trying to hone in on the specific report that we're hoping to write here. And again, we're taken to another set of folders where there's an array of different possibilities that we can explore. So some of this you'll find is by trial and error, where we're drilling down here, and I'm looking for something that says PO invoices. Go ahead and yell out if you see it. And look, I think, here we go. So we've got PO vendors and PO invoices. Remember from last time when we made a report, we customized an already existing Webquery report, and you can still utilize those below. So if you wanted to go ahead and search and say, well, I'm looking for something related to, and here's one actually, what are all the invoices for a specific purchase order? That's not exactly what we need. Just a little tip here, you'll see inside these brackets, there's a reference to the actual name of the view. Now, if you were keen, you might have seen this names of these views are actually in the Noetix search as well. So there's a whole world for us to explore. We're going to take this one step at a time. Staying on task, I'm going to explore the purchase order invoices. And in here, I've got a couple possibilities within this folder. What's interesting is the one that we just picked beneath is appearing in this folder as well. So it looks like we'll go ahead and look in there and see. Remember from last time, we click on there on the custom view, and it's going to give us a submenu to the right-hand side. And from there, we're going to go through the process of taking reports that are already out there in Webquery and changing those to customize them, make them our own. So I'm going to go to a new custom query. And again, now this is where we're going to start to deep dive, and it's the purpose of this exercise is to get familiar with what's available for us here when we're looking at this. So you remember from last time, there's a mast header here with a lot of different options, and we didn't really explore those options. Well, we're going to take a look at that now and get into the nuts and bolts of this. And you'll find, I think, that it's not as difficult or as intimidating as it can at first seem. So let's walk through these real quickly. Now the first one by default that you're taken to is called columns, and you can tell that you're on that section because it's highlighted in black, whereas the other hyperlinks are all highlighted in light blue. And in the columns section on the left hand side, you're going to see all the columns that are available for this particular view. Remember, the name of this view is POGO Invoices. So everything here is like a menu, and I can select from this menu to drag fields to the right-hand side. You guessed it. And on the right-hand side are all the fields that have already been pre-selected for this particular view. We may or may not want those. We're going to go ahead and get into that customization here in just a moment. So one thing I talked about early on is that we want purchase order details, but we want them as they relate to projects. So the first step is to look inside this purchase order information and say, well, is there anything in here that's going to give me project information? And here we go. We've got the project number. Now, because I want to look for uninvoiced purchase orders, it may not be the case that just the header level information of a purchase order is going to be enough. I might have to go down to the lines. And that's going to take us a nice segue to the vtables. So if I click on that hyperlink, I can navigate to a different section within my customization, where you'll again see the name of the view that we're currently in. But there's an option down here where you can load related vtables. So if you know you're looking in purchase orders, for example, but you're not quite sure whether or not this is the view that you need, you can get the ability, and by default, just as a word of caution, this is often disabled. So you'll have to make a ticket with ITSS Help Desk and say, I'd like the ability to be able to load these related vtables. So just click on Load Related vtables, and hopefully if it's enabled for you, you're going to get a list of everything that's associated with this particular view right here, the POGO invoices. And there's quite a bit. So I can see that I've just got the purchase orders, shipments, lines, the different vendors that are associated with purchase orders, and I also have distributions. Okay, well, I did a little homework just like a good cooking show, and I know that I'm actually after this distributions view. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to cheat here, and just like with the columns, I can drag over this view as one of my selected vtables. Now, an important word of caution when you do this is that you might have to create a join between the two. But one thing I'm going to go ahead and do is I don't think I'm going to necessarily need the purchase order invoices, so I'm going to take that and drag it to the left-hand side. And it's going to warn me all of those fields that were pre-selected under the column section are no longer going to be available. That's okay. We know that that's the case. And just to prove that that is true, I'm going to click over here on the columns, and you'll see all those options are gone. Because what's available to me now is just things that are associated with the distributions. This concludes Class 2, Section 1. Please refer to Class 2, Section 2. There are 3 parts in Class 2.